We come to a feast today that I have thought for a while has never been fully appreciated. I don't know, it wasn't that long ago, but you know how sometimes people can talk about which feast to the church is most important. You know, is Christmas or Easter? What's the bigger feast or things like that? And I came across a conversation people were having about that. And one of them said to me, "Father, what do you think? You know, which is the greater feast, Easter or Christmas?" And I said, well, that sounds to me like the question we sometimes ask people, like, how do you pronounce the capital of Kentucky, Louisville or Louisville? You know, I'd say my opinion is neither of those is the most important feast, but the feast of the most holy Trinity. I look at it this way. First of all, the question itself is unanswerable and probably silly to spend too much time on. But Easter and Christmas, we celebrate a feast of what God did, and on this day, we celebrate a feast of who God is in himself, you know. That God is Trinity, one God, but three distinct persons. And normally on this day, I preach about the Trinity in some way, that you come to know more about what the Trinity means and how it works, etc., etc. And that is important, you know. But today I feel led to do something different, because over the years, and I started this way myself, I noticed that people have talked about how they say, I only pray to Jesus. I've heard that, you know. Or, you know, I might pray to Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And I myself began, when I first came to know the Lord, I came to know Jesus. That was the first person of the Trinity that I came to know. And after that, because I was in the charismatic movement, I came to have a sense of the Holy Spirit. But it was only later even that I really thought seriously about the Father and praying to the Father, you know. And so instead of today talking to you that you would know more about God, I want to encourage those of you who are not yet praying to all three persons in the Trinity to begin. That as important as it is to know about God, and you know that's important to me, that's why I started the small faith groups, etc. I always want you to be more knowing about your faith, you know. But better still even than knowing about God is knowing God. And so it's good to know about the Father and to know about Jesus, to know about the Holy Spirit, etc. But it's even better, and they're not opposed to each other, but even better to know the Father, to know Jesus, to know the Holy Spirit. And the best way I know of beginning that is that you begin talking to all three of them. And I've noticed in my own life, the more that has gone on, that I realize there are times when I'm drawn to speak to the Father about something, and other times about Jesus, and other times about the Holy Spirit. And I know, I can tell now, I can usually tell when a specific one is speaking to me. It's hard to talk about. I know it doesn't make any real sense, I guess, the language of it. But many times I think I can recognize the Father's voice, I recognize Jesus' voice, I recognize the Holy Spirit's voice. As I say, don't get too hung up on that language, but I don't know how else to talk about it, you know. And so it seems too short a thing for a Sunday homily, but really this is my message to you today, encourage you. If you don't yet pray to all three members of the Trinity, I encourage you to begin. And don't worry if you haven't. It's not that I wouldn't say it's necessary for salvation, because the Trinity is one God. You can't call on one without calling on the other two as well. Where one is present, the other two are present. But to deepen your spiritual life, to enrich your spiritual life, I encourage you, begin praying. And prayer, as I've said before, is self-correcting. You'll get it right. Eventually, just start. And the longer you do it, you'll figure it out more. But I can almost guarantee you that you will come closer to God if you begin to know them not only as God, but each of them individually as one member of the Trinity. So I encourage you, begin praying to the Father specifically, to the Son specifically, and to the Holy Spirit, and see what happens in your spiritual life.